Now, radical gender theory and activism continues to infiltrate women's organisations. Even the Australian Breastfeeding Association isn't completely immune. What started with the use of inclusive language has escalated to the point where counsellors have been accused of discrimination for not supporting all parents, including men, who want to breastfeed. Now, Jasmine Sussex is a mum, a feminist, and was a volunteer counsellor with the Australian Breastfeeding Association for 15 years before she was accused of what was tantamount to hate speech for saying that only women, only mothers breastfeed. Jasmine joins me now. Thank you for your time, Jasmine. You've spent years helping mothers with breastfeeding support. But you were not only accused of indulging in hate speech for saying only mums breastfeed, but the association also insisted that you respect and support a 4-year-old child being transitioned from a girl to a boy. Just tell me about your story there and what's happened in the association in recent years.
Yeah, that's all true, Rita, and such a sad story that an organisation that was set up by mothers to help mothers with their breastfeeding has turned into this organisation torn apart by identity politics. So like many other breastfeeding charities around the world, the rush to be inclusive and support transgender parents who can be obviously men or women who identify as the opposite gender has really taken hold. And it's not just about language anymore, it's now become about services. So training videos were issued late last year that required breastfeeding counsellors to not discriminate against any parent who wanted to feed their baby human milk. And it was made quite clear that that meant trans women, which, as we all understand, are biological men. So it was certainly a surprise to me that an organisation that used to be called Nursing Mothers would adopt this identity politics. And myself and 6 other counsellors have been disciplined, and 5 of us have been sacked, or we've had our ability to counsel through the Breastfeeding Association removed from us as a result of all of this.
So did you feel like you were under pressure to step down from your role after 15 years because of these requirements?
No. So I was, they call it resigned, but in fact, I didn't resign. I was sent a letter. I was sacked, told that I could no longer counsel with the Breastfeeding Association because I'd raised my concerns about the association's adventures into gender identity politics, which I think are entirely inappropriate for a women's health organisation. You know, being a mother is a biological fact. It's not a gender identity, and it's not appropriate for a nationally funded women's health organisation to invite biological men in to identify as breastfeeding mothers. And it never was. Now, I think the Australian Breastfeeding Association should apologise.
Well, they've said through a spokesperson previously that, and I quote, "We will not be erasing sexed language such as mother or mum or mothering from our vocabulary, and we have no plans to adopt the use of the language such as chest feeding rather than breastfeeding more generally within the association." So they've said that. But Jasmine, are they encouraging biological men and their fantasies about lactating and breastfeeding? And is there any science behind this? I mean, can men breastfeed?
Yeah, so the conversation last year was about language, Rita, but the Breastfeeding Association did hear from the community that the community expected them to continue to talk about mothers, because obviously 99.9% of the people who use the Breastfeeding Association services are mothers and they're women. But then what happened was it became about services. So the Breastfeeding Association put out some guidance for transgender parents, and that was where it became clear that by including all breastfeeding parents, that they were also including men. So one of the reasons that was given in my dismissal letter was that I raised with the Breastfeeding Association that there was a transgender woman boasting about feeding, I say his because I think it's important to tell the truth when we're protecting babies and mothers, his child colostrum. So, and I don't think that that's safe for that child or for that child's actual mother who has a right to breastfeed her child if she wants to. So it's definitely providing services to men.
So that in that instance, I just want to make it clear, there was a biological male who identifies as a woman, so identifies as a trans woman, who was feeding their child colostrum from their breast. And I mean, do we have any medical advice on that? Is that safe for an infant to be consuming that? And I just find that incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, Rita. And the fact is, it is a massive experiment on babies. So there are maybe 2 case studies in the trans health journals and the endocrinology journal of one particular trans woman or 2 different women in the 2 journal articles and their experience in trying to induce lactation by taking feminine hormones or with female hormones and expressing. So one of them was able to provide some milk for 6 weeks, but the milk wasn't tested. We don't know if it's equivalent to mother's milk. We just don't know. And even if we had science that said that it was safe for the man or the baby, you've then got the ethical issue of why would a breastfeeding organisation support separating the baby from its actual mother, pushing her out of the way so that this identifying mother can get in on the breastfeeding.
This entire discussion
Rita, it really
and debate
does.
It is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. I think the overwhelming majority of people, whatever their political persuasion, watching this would be shaking their head going, what in God's name is happening here? Jasmine Sussex, thank you so much for sharing your story with us tonight.